Story 1. I have a friend who is a marine microbiologist with a master's degree. He works for a university under government contracts for national water conservation efforts and makes $20 per hour. I dropped out of college, work in a factory, and make $30 per hour base, $60 per hour on weekends. He lives in an apartment and drives an old car. I own my own home with my wife and stepchildren and regularly have extra money for fun. Someone actively working to preserve the future for humanity is paid less than someone who is paid to do manual labor. Story 2. Emergency medical technician. Got certified and they were only paying $10 an hour in 2010. Promptly continued my education in another line of work. Story 3. Veterinary technician. People always assumed I was making slightly less than a veterinarian. No, try several $1,000s less, like $10 an hour. Story 4. Executive chefs face massive amounts of overtime, irregular hours, low pay, and often no benefits. It is no wonder there is a mental health and substance abuse crisis in the industry. Story 5. Lawyers who make the most money are partners at large law firms. Associate lawyers and those with small practices work long hours, face significant pressure, and do not earn as much. Story 6. I have a college professor friend who told me what he makes. It absolutely blew my mind how little they are being paid. Considering the cost of college tuition is so high, and acknowledging that my friend's university has small class sizes, he teaches over 100 students a semester. The job requires a Doctor of Philosophy degree by definition. Professors are like the main attraction of a school, yet they are paid very little. Story 7. Paramedics here in New South Wales, Australia. After a paramedic was killed last year, it exposed how low the New South Wales government pays their healthcare workers. Nurses and paramedics are considered dispensable here in Australia. They can replace us anytime, hence they do not care. They only give lip service like, "You are heroes. You are selfless." Meanwhile, we and our families are barely surviving. Story 8. Probably a controversial answer, but OnlyFans creators. Many people seem to think that every single creator on OnlyFans is making a lot of money and becoming millionaires in their 20s. There are also many creators who join the platform thinking, all I have to do is post nudes of myself and I'll be rich. This is false. OnlyFans is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This narrative is often promoted by the creators in the top 0.1% who have succeeded. They often do interviews where they brag about how they left their boring, soulless, thankless jobs in favor of OnlyFans and made a lot of money. This makes the platform seem more attractive to young creators who join hoping to become the next Bad Baby or Belle Delphine. What they don't tell you is that many of the top earners already had platforms before joining, so people knew who they were. Bad Baby was known for her infamous Cash Me Outside appearance on Dr. Phil, which led to a profitable music career before joining OnlyFans. Belle Delphine was a cosplayer who became a YouTube and TikTok sensation, posting softcore content on those platforms before getting banned and transitioning to more explicit content. On OnlyFans, most other top earners are C-list celebrities like Bella Thorne, Blac Chyna, and Cardi B, as well as notable adult film stars, cam models, Instagram influencers, and Twitch streamers. There may be some creators who just happen to get lucky and successfully promoted their accounts, but those cases are rare. In reality, the average OnlyFans creator makes around $150 a month, and some make nothing. That is clearly not enough to live on, so many have regular jobs while trying to promote their accounts. Many leave OnlyFans altogether when they realize they were misled about how easy it is to make money there. Story 9. A lot of people do not realize how little preschool and daycare teachers earn. I hold a bachelor's degree in early childhood education and was only making $12 an hour in 2020. Story 10. Basically, any job that you think, hey, I could enjoy that, has an unspoken trade-off. You are not going to get rich doing it. Story 11. Emergency medical technicians make barely over minimum wage. It is surprising because you need schooling for it. Even though the pay is not high, it is still surprising. Story 12. Many engineers are paid very little compared to their responsibilities. This is especially true for infrastructure engineers, people who design, operate, and maintain systems such as the power grid, water, and sewer systems, particularly smaller systems in rural areas, receive low compensation despite their crucial role in enabling modern life. While they have a comfortable livelihood, an engineer responsible for a water system in a city of 1 million people likely earns half or less than a hardware engineer at a company like Apple, even though both may have mechanical engineering degrees. Story 13. I earn more working in a school than a relative who is a psychologist, and a very good one too. Many high-paying professions only become high-paying if you work in the private sector. Publicly funded healthcare is not as well paid as I thought. Story 14. My ex-husband was a funeral director. For all they did, he made it worthwhile. He did it strictly to help grieving families. Story 15. I thought graphic design, teaching, and journalism paid more than they do. Story 16. Freelance artists sometimes receive very little payment for their work because they often create free samples to show clients before they are paid, if at all. Story 17. Direct support professionals provide essential support to people with disabilities in group homes, day programs, and community activities. They complete extensive training, including critical tasks like handling and distributing medication. In some areas, they earn just above minimum wage and often depend on overtime or multiple jobs to make ends meet. Story 18. Pretty much everyone working at your neighborhood bank branch is making very little. Tellers are paid hourly, and personal bankers do not earn much either. I work from home in data analytics in corporate banking. Recently, I visited a local bank location to discuss employee benefits. There was a lot of contempt on the banker's face when she realized I was making at least double her salary, and I am not even earning six figures. I do not necessarily blame her. Story 19. Architects. Yes, there are some star architects who make millions, but most do not make nearly as much as people think, especially given the amount of schooling required. That is, if you can even get a job in the field. Story 20. Train drivers, bus drivers, and other people in public transport who are responsible for many things, including human lives. Story 21. Being a truck driver. Too many people are purposely lowering our wages by working for very low pay. Story 22. United Kingdom engineering or information technology pay is much lower than the skills and qualifications required. Story 23. Teachers. It is horrific that we do not place more importance on this role in the United States. Story 24. In the grand scheme of medicine, pediatricians are significantly underpaid compared to other specialties. Story 25. I was a stage gaffer for Warner Brothers back in 2009. What I was making was absolutely ridiculous. I found out it was mostly due to keeping up with the high cost of everything else. Sure, I was making $42 an hour, but renting a house that required bars on the windows was still $2,000 a month. I cheated and lived at the studio for my first 2 months in California. There were dozens of warehouses, and most of them were set up like houses. I worked on the set of private practice and often caught myself waking up panicked, thinking, "Oh God, why am I in a hospital? What happened?" The house set was right beside the hospital set, but the mattresses in the house were wood with a cover, and the hospital beds were actual hospital beds. Story 26. Funeral director. If I switched from my entry-level factory job to my mortician job, I would get a pay cut. Story 27. Casino pit boss. I used to see them wearing tons of jewelry. I thought, this guy has 6 diamond rings, he must own the casino. In reality, no casino employee you meet makes much more than minimum wage. Story 28. City and county jobs. I make way more working a low-paying retail job than I would at a city or county job. Story 29. Public safety as a whole is severely underpaid. I am a 911 dispatcher, and I make less than $30 per hour at the maximum pay step. Story 30. Veterinarians start at $65,000 and earn up to a maximum of $170,000. They work long hours, face high college debt in the United States, and experience significant abuse from pet owners. Story 31. Musician. Unless you are world famous or in a top touring band like U2, Metallica, or Blink-182, musicians make next to nothing. Even some well-known bands still have to have day jobs when they are not touring. Even if you are able to make a living just doing music, it is usually just enough to scrape by. Story 32. Lawyer. While you can make a lot of money practicing law, most lawyers earn significantly less compared to their clients. For example, if you practice divorce and family law, your garbage collector probably earns more than you. Story 33. Anything in healthcare. Also, the health insurance provided by healthcare institutions is poor. I left and now work for a unionized phosphate plant. I get 3 weeks of paid time off and sick leave that is separate from my paid time off. I also have excellent health insurance. Story 34. Scientist. Someone convinced me to do a science degree so I would have a good job, and now I cannot even afford a flat on my own after 4 years since graduation. I know other jobs pay even less, but I still feel disappointed. Story 35. I got my educational administrator credential, got hired, and started making more money than the people who were teaching me just a few months before. It is wild to me that it takes 8 years minimum, in addition to a doctorate degree and getting lucky to immediately land a tenure-track position and reach your milestones as soon as possible to become a professor in the California State University system, and you will still be under $100,000. With most places with a California State University or University of California campus, even $100,000 is not enough to afford a somewhat nice middle-class living. You are undeniably an expert in your field, pushing the boundaries on research and solving problems, and you can afford a 2-bedroom apartment and drive a base trim Honda because you teach at San Jose State. Story 36. I thought actors and actresses were paid more to star in movies that performed well at the box office. I found out that some actors received $5,000 to star in a movie that grossed millions. Story 37. Most performers in Blue Man Group earn less than $20 an hour. Story 38. Armored car drivers. When I looked into it in 2007, they were making $10 an hour. Story 39. People who climb towers to change light bulbs make about $20 per hour, not $30,000 per climb. Story 40. Every job that contributes to society, such as farmers and tradesmen. Story 41. I was a registered professional architect, and the laborers on the job site, the apprentices, made more than I did as a junior designer. Story 42. Welders, you often hear about high pay, and there are certain jobs that offer it, but they tend to be tied to travel or require very technical skills with rigorous inspections and x-rays. You can do it, but if you want to earn top dollar, you really need to focus on travel and specialization. Story 43. Key workers/essential workers. Everyone who had to go to work during a global pandemic deserves the world. Anyone who criticizes shop workers, healthcare workers, emergency responders, and others who risk their lives to ensure everyone could stay at home safe deserves to be reconsidered. Story 44. People who work in group homes for people with disabilities. Where I live several years ago, they were making about $9 an hour. Story 45. Veterinarians. I was really surprised when I heard from my veterinarian friends, both young and old, what a normal veterinarian wage is. Story 46. Emergency medical technicians, paramedics, and firefighters, last time I checked locally, were not paid the highest salaries. Story 47. Welding was difficult. I can do more, but it would require sacrificing my health and neglecting my family. Story 48. Trash collectors in the United States are paid significantly more than most people assume. Story 49. Actuaries. Do not get me wrong. They are well compensated, but they go through a lot of red tape, education, and difficult exams. I would have expected them to be compensated a bit better than they are. Story 50. Train drivers, bus drivers, and other people in public transport are responsible for many things, including human lives. Story 51. Repo does not pay enough to risk getting shot at and all the other problems you have to deal with. Story 52. In Canada, engineers excluding software engineers used to have a reputation for earning high salaries, but many are struggling to earn 6 figures in Canadian dollars. Given the rigorous education and qualifications required, this is quite surprising. Another example is first officer pilots in Canada. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, some were earning around 40,000 Canadian dollars, even at medium to large airlines. While inflation and increased demand have likely led to higher pay, it is still surprising that a standard white-collar office job might pay more than their earnings. Story 53. It is no surprise, I suppose, but teaching is poorly paid. I earned more doing private care work, a job that is often looked down on, and had none of the planning, preparation, scrutiny, and administration that teaching demands. I had a baby and had to stop care work because of the long hours, night shifts, and weekends required. Story 54. I worked a desk job at our regional blood center where I had maybe 2 hours of work per day, and most of that was just sending emails. I took a 25% pay cut to become a phlebotomist for the same company, and it was a grueling job. Story 55. Emergency dispatchers earning $40,000 per year was considered great money back in 2012 when I was 19 and first started. However, answering emails all day in a completely stress-free office job for the same amount of money was much nicer. Even now, 12 years later, most places still pay $40,000. Dispatchers should be receiving significantly higher compensation for the challenges they face. Story 56. When I was little, I thought anyone who wore some sort of uniform to work made a lot of money. Ha! Story 57. My understanding of analytics work for professional sports franchises, including the National Football League and the National Basketball Association, is that it pays much lower than comparable work in other industries. The reason is that it is a prestige job, and these organizations do not have to pay the same premium for top talent that, for example, an insurance company might. This is probably true for most jobs in professional sports, including National Football League cheerleaders. Story 58. Town police. I met a man who changed careers because he was only earning $12.50 per hour. Story 59. I always thought funeral directors would make a lot of money because who would really want to do that? But apparently they do not make that much. Story 60. I always thought being a professional in anything meant you would be rolling in money. It turns out you can spend years studying to become an artist, only to end up waiting tables while trying to sell your paintings for the price of a cup of coffee. It is like the universe is saying, "Congratulations, you have mastered the art of starving." Story 61. Radio show host. It turns out not very much because you also get benefits like concert tickets, so the pay is average. Story 62. Not exactly an answer to this question, but I was surprised to find how much lower doctors in the United Kingdom and Europe earn compared to the United States of America, Canada, and Australia. I guess the perk that doctors in the United Kingdom and Europe have is a better work-life balance. Story 63. As a child, I was convinced that toilet attendants and garbage collectors must be paid an extremely high salary. Otherwise, why would anyone want to do that job? Story 64. Given the difficulty and scarcity of space missions, I thought that astronauts were paid significantly more, especially considering how many things can go wrong, time away from family, stress on the body, and so on. However, I suppose saying you have been to outer space or the moon is a pretty awesome form of compensation as well. And, of course, being able to say you are an astronaut. Story 65. In the military, unless you have special pay or you are married with children, at any rank you are earning very little. Story 66. Many jobs in information technology are not highly paid. People often think that just because it is an information technology job, they will earn a lot of money. That is not true unless you are in a management or a senior engineering position. Story 67. Basically, any job requiring a degree for fresh graduates out of college. I keep hearing about college graduates struggling to find employment, or those who do are not making more than someone working at Costco or In-N-Out because they are fresh out of college. I feel that if you have a degree, you should automatically be making the current livable wage or more. It is sad that so many are not, after spending so much on their degrees. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.